Welcome to series of database management system video lectures. Today we will be discussing about unit 5 topic 5, that is active database. Now, in the previous sessions we have discussed what is a database, how to create a database. But then what is an active database? Which means that any database which is in active state? Absolutely not. So a database which is defined in such a way that it should be active in such a way that for any kind of operation which is performed upon the database, it should act or give the spontaneous result to it. So now how that sort of thing can be done. So now when we have created a database, while inserting the data into the database, there should be a trigger which should immediately gets triggered if any insertion of the data which is being done violating the rules which is being specified. Similarly, for deletion of the record, if the deletion of the records is being conducted by violating the rules specified by the trigger. So whatever may be the operation that is being performed upon the database, all the triggers should be in active state and it should immediately generate any kind of message conveying to the user that the associated operation may be allowed or may not be allowed. Okay, so look at the figure here. So these are the databases, and these databases are going to be called as active databases. And upon these databases, we write the query, we write the triggers. Trigger is nothing but a program written using structured query language. And depending upon the operations which are performed, whether it could be a DDL, DML, or DCL, TCL commands which have been executed upon that database data, then immediately the associated triggers should get executed. Okay. So now, according to that operations, the triggers are going to be generated. So it will not allow you to perform any operation which is not being stated, right? So now what are the features of this active databases? So this active databases possess all the concepts of the conventional database, which means that these databases are available for us to perform data modeling operations, to design the data, to manipulate the data, and to query the data, and to implement any kind of transaction related operations upon the data. And it also allows us to identify any kind of events which have been occurred upon that particular data item. Okay, and it is also going to be developed in such a way that to evaluate the conditions and to execute the actions which is being implemented upon the database. So it will always ensures that there should not be any kind of violation rule that is being uh, bypassed by the any type of users with various roles which are being specified for the database system. Now, what are the examples of these active databases? The first one is real-time databases, in-memory databases, transactional databases, and fourth is time series databases. Now let us look at what can be the best examples for real-time databases. So this type of databases always focus only on the actual response time. It should be spontaneous enough to render the required set of answers with a very short response time. It should not take a more amount of time for evaluating any kind of queries that is being given to the user, right? So these are Oracle times 10 and VaultDB are the two different real-time databases which will be fast enough to respond for the or against to the queries given by the users. Okay. And Oracle times 10 database, which runs in memory and intended specially for real-time applications that need response times of less than 1 millisecond. And the next one is Vault DB. It is a lightning fast in memory database for simultaneous analytics and data processing. So not only just to perform any kind of operations in the database, it is also going to conduct an analytics in the background. That means how many number of times this query is being processed by how many number of users and how much amount of time which is being incurred to process that particular request, right? So all this detailed analysis is also being done by the Vault database. Now, the next example of the active databases is in-memory databases. So we have two in-memory databases, that is SAP HANA and then MemSQL. SAP HANA is very exclusively used for column-oriented in-memory relational database management system, which is going to be used to deal with a large number of data elements. And this can also be applicable for real-time analytics. So which means that as soon as you provide the data, it will also perform a analytics upon the data, who at what point of time and how many number of times, the frequency of accessing to the data, and how the query engine is being processed to give the adequate answer to the given query. And MemSQL uses in-memory processing for real-time data insights, which will combine the analytics and the transactions on a single platform. And the next type of active databases is transactional databases. So we have two examples for it. One is MySQL cluster and the second one is Microsoft SQL Server with always on. So MySQL cluster, which offers automatic sharding and synchronous replications for high availability and real-time data access. So now here cluster is nothing but a group of systems which are being connected with each other, which is going to integrate the operations upon multiple number of systems to perform any kind of query which is being shared to them, right? So that it is going to maintain a high level of transparency, not to high level of transparency, and which will also work in a synchronous manner, so that at any point of time, the non-availability of the systems may not be encountered. Okay. And the next type of transactional databases is Microsoft SQL Server with always on. So, which indicates that high availability and disaster recovery are provided by Microsoft SQL servers. So, at any point of time, always the system will be available to perform any kind of operations. You cannot say that at so and so point of time the server is not ready to accept any kind of operations, right? So that huge setup is being made by the Microsoft systems. And the last type of example of active databases is time series databases. So we have two examples for this. One is InfluxDB and then Prometheus. So for InfluxDB, time-stamped data is going to be used, which will design with a heavy write and query loads, which is going to be frequently utilized in IoT and monitoring applications, because time to time updates have to be taken, and depending upon that, various charts that are going to be generated in order to show the behavior of that particular component exclusively in the domain of Internet of Things area, right? And Prometheus, it is a toolkit for alerting and monitoring that keeps track of time series data and is used to analyze and monitor systems in real time. Now, what do you mean by time series? So, the data is being generated with respect to the point of time. Okay. So, generally, a weather condition or the number of people who travel from one point to the other point, right? So that is the time series data wherein you can find out with respect to time what was the change, what is the pattern that is being used. Okay, so these are the examples of active databases and what can be the benefits compared to the normal databases. Normal databases were designed in such a way that to treat it as a container for the storage of data, and up to some extent there were few constraints that are being implemented such that there will not be any uh, null values that are going to be allowed so that it will never convert your table or the database into incompleteness. It ensures for integrity and then consistency of the data, and that's how to maintain a confidentiality of the data. So this sort of features were provided by a traditional database systems, but then we need something else beyond that. So that's the reason it enhances traditional database functionalities with powerful rule processing capabilities, and it will also enable a uniform and centralized description for the business rules relevant to the information system, and it avoids redundancy of checking and repair operations. And this active databases is most suitable platform for building large and efficient knowledge base and export systems, wherein we will embed the AI concepts so that the system itself will be able to learn everything with a trial and error mechanism so that it will be able to find out the best query so that the engine will work in such a way that we will be able to retrieve the accurate results. Okay, so this is all about active databases.